So for the rest of this month, I want to focus on movies and series that deeply disturbed me as a child. I'm here to unpack them all, dispel any mysteries, and associate these movies and series with fondness rather than wariness. With that being said, today I want to start off with one of my favorite movies from Studio Ghibli. This is 2001, Spirited Away. Chihiro and her family are moving. On the way to their new house, Chihiro's father takes a shortcut that leads to the entrance of an older building. For some reason, Chihiro's mother and father cannot control their curiosity, and they enter this old building, which turns out to be a train station that is no longer active. Instead of turning back, they continue walking in an open field until they find abandoned houses and other various buildings. Now the parents cannot control their hunger and pig out on some random food that they happen to come across. Mind you, they have not run into a single other person while exploring a place that seems completely deserted. Chihiro's parents turn into literal pigs, and from then on, Chihiro goes on a long journey full of ups and downs, trials and tribulations, where she meets several spirits, energies, entities, or whatever you want to call them, all in the hopes of returning her parents, who have turned into pigs, back to human. It is hinted and implied this story takes place in an alternate world, an alternate reality, the spirit world, the quantum world, or in a different dimension. I feel like this movie has multiple layers, but at the same time, it is relatively simple. There are symbols and themes that stick out to me that I am going to talk more about, but a part of me feels like I am barely scratching the surface. And to me, this movie feels like watching Alice in Wonderland and other similar stories where the main character goes on a fantasy-like, fantastical journey. Honestly, in a lot of ways, it feels like I am experiencing a fever dream when watching this movie, but I'm not mad at it since I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Don't talk to me and address me as Master Haku.
One of the first spirits or entities that Chihiro meets is Haku, and he gives Chihiro support and guidance all throughout this movie. I get this, and I acknowledge him helping out our main character in her time of need, but whenever Haku came on the screen, my guard was up. I genuinely believed and thought that Haku was a red flag. I can't help but think of the chorus for the song So What? Because no matter what negative things Lin, Yubaba, Zeniba, and the other bathhouse workers had to say about Haku, Chihiro was like, so what? But where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, I'll give our main character, Chihiro, a pass. She had a deep spiritual and intuitive connection with Haku that goes beyond our human understanding. Haku is the spirit of the Kohaku River. He essentially saved Chihiro from drowning when she was younger. Haku is a good guy. I get it, and I acknowledge this. But normally, it is strange to not even question or investigate further or look deeper into negative rumors or negative perception towards an individual, even if they treat you well. If everyone else around them only has negative things to say, I wouldn't feel so blindly trusting of this person. But that's just me, and the reason I had my guard up against Haku for the majority of the movie. I was just waiting for the ball to drop. And Studio Ghibli, however you pronounce it, really got me good. It set up an interesting plot twist that I had forgotten all about.
Pen, you did great. We made so much money.
Chihiro spends the majority of the movie at this bathhouse that services spirits, and this is all for the sake of her parents and finding a way to turn them back into human. Haku lets Chihiro know that she must get a job at the bathhouse or else she's at risk of being kicked out or worse, turned into an animal similar to her parents. So Chihiro ends up asking Yubaba, the owner of the bathhouse, for a job. We can think of Yubaba as an antagonist of sorts in this movie. Yubaba hands over a contract for Chihiro to sign. We find out later that Yubaba took an oath to give a job to anyone who asked, so she was going to give Chihiro a job anyway. This contract was unnecessary and it was a trick. Once Chihiro signs this contract, Yubaba now owns Chihiro's name. She owns Chihiro's character, the characters of her name. Yubaba then gives Chihiro the new name, Sen. I've lost count the number of times greed, being greedy, the word greed was said in this movie. The bathhouse workers are called greedy. Haku gets called a greedy little thief at one point, and I almost feel like greed, the concept of greed, the idea of greed, is a distraction to what is really going on. Yubaba tricked Chihiro into signing a contract where she forfeits her name. Over time, as Chihiro uses her new name, Sen, she will begin to lose her memories of her life as Chihiro Chihiro before she even came to the bathhouse. Haku is in a similar position since he has also forgotten his original name and where he came from since he started working for Yubaba. We also find out from Haku that Yubaba controls others by stealing their names. And if you completely forget your name, you'll never find your way back home. How terrifying. So imagine the other bathhouse workers. They have more than likely signed a contract with Yubaba and have forgotten their name and their life before they ended up working at the bathhouse. It reminds me of being stuck in a dead-end job, slowly being driven insane. But to keep the insanity at bay, you visualize a future that would never materialize. So what's really going on here? Is this movie really about greed? I mean, can you imagine? You sign a contract where you forfeit your name. This contract is unnecessary since Yubaba mentioned she signed a vow to give anyone who asks a job, period. Yubaba tricks people into signing contracts so that she can benefit by taking their name, their identity, past, and memories. We never learn more about Yubaba's background, and perhaps she was tricked at one point, and now she decided to do the tricking. Regardless, after signing this contract, you are then given a new name that gives you this new identity and new purpose. You're a bathhouse worker now. As you continue to live your life and you use your new name, over time you forget your original name, your original identity, past, memories, everything, and more. You are stuck in a loop and you are stuck in a cycle that you willingly signed up for, but you cannot remember that you have forgotten. All you have are your hopes and dreams of one day escaping your circumstances, and these are circumstances that you can't even remember how you got there in the first place. Or all you can think of is saving enough money to retire and get a train ticket to leave this place and never come back. But that day will never come. Still, it is the act of looking forward toward the future that will never be fulfilled and will never materialize since you cannot even remember your past. That keeps you stuck in a loop, stuck in a cycle. This is a true nightmare. And one of the scariest aspects of this movie to me, and this is the first time I am rewatching this movie as an adult, I still remember the infamous chase scene in this movie that haunted me as a child. But I find the idea of signing an unnecessary contract, giving up my name, losing my memories, and being stuck in a dead-end job for the rest of my existence scarier. These aren't people, these are spirits, entities, energies that likely have a longer life expectancy than the average human. So imagine how long they are stuck at this bathhouse as a bathhouse worker, and all they can remember, is their life at the bathhouse, and all they can visualize and think about and dream about is the life to come after the bathhouse. This is my theory, but they'll never be able to escape because they cannot remember their original name, how they got here in the first place. They cannot remember that they have forgotten. How can I remember who I am if I have forgotten to remember in the first place? It reminds me of the quote I once heard, we remember to forget and we forget to remember. It's a paradox. And what do we do with paradoxes? I'm asking because I genuinely don't know. What if we are born into this world, given a name by our parents? This name defines us and sets us out on a path. But we have forgotten our true name, our true purpose. We wake up every day following the path that has been laid before us, hoping for a tomorrow that will never come because we have forgotten. We can't even remember that we have forgotten. We're simply stuck in a loop, stuck in a cycle that we willingly signed up for. Yet, we cannot remember that we forgot in the first place. Some of us live happily in ignorance while others feel that something's off. Something's not quite right. And we can't quite find the words to describe this feeling, but we carry on with our lives regardless.
Come on, quit eating!
Everyone is greedy. So what? You either profit from your greed or you suffer from it. Pick your poison. No, but for real, the characters that we meet throughout this movie may display traits of greed, have greedy characteristics on the surface. And perhaps greed is a central theme of this movie, but to me, all I see are a bunch of spirits or entities being tricked and doing the tricking. Perhaps this movie represents the bottomless pit of our desires, the idea that our desires are a black hole that is never ending and always expanding, because as soon as we get what we want, there will always be something else. Yes, there is this moment of satisfaction, of finally receiving our heart's desires, but how long does that moment truly last? Is this greed? Is this being insatiable? Is this being human? Who knows?
Everyone learn from Sen. Saki's on the house tonight.
Now I want to talk about our main character, Chihiro, and how I came to love her more and more as the movie progressed. Chihiro signs the contract with Yubaba early on in this movie and is given the new name Sen. She actually uses the name Sen and is referred to as Sen more often than she's referred to as Chihiro. And to go from a name like Chihiro to Sen has to be symbolic. Names are obviously important in this movie. So what does it mean when Zeniba, Granny, Yubaba's twin sister, says to take good care of your name when she sends Sen off and on her way? Not to take care of yourself, but to take care of your name. It was as if Zeniba was telling Sen, remember who you are, remember where you come from. This of course reminds me of The Lion King and Blackest King, and for me what comes up, I was named after my grandmother who was named after her grandmothers, and they were both named Pearl. I come from a long line of pearls. I was also named after my father. Every person whom I've been named after, they're no longer living. They've passed away, but they still live on with me and through me, and I carry on their names, their legacy, their memories. And this is just another layer to it all when it comes to names. And this is what comes up for me. But back to Sen, back to Chihiro. It's not the end of the world if you make the mistake of signing a bad contract or agreeing to a deal that does not work in your favor. There is always a way out. Yes, Chihiro signed a bad contract, a totally unnecessary contract, and despite all this, she continues to move forward, never losing track of her goal, which is to find a way to save her parents who have turned into pigs. They're still pigs all throughout this movie. Because of this, Chihiro's character gives me great comfort. She is a pure, open-hearted, kind, sweet girl. She's brave and steadfast. Her kindness and her sweetness don't feel like she's being a pushover to me. She is able to stay true to herself and her kind nature without being a people pleaser. She has great boundaries. An example of this is evident right before the chase scene when No Face offers and urges Chihiro to taste the food and to take the gold. She tells him no in the most respectful way, and she lets him know that he needs to leave the bathhouse. It's time for him to go. So after Chihiro feeds No Face the medicine that she received from the river spirit, which was meant for her parents and she was saving it for her parents, No Face throws up everything he has consumed while at the bathhouse. And then he decides to chase Chihiro. While being chased, Chihiro goes out of her way and takes the path with fewer spirits or entities and guides No Face out of the bathhouse. No Face has now calmed down and is back to how he was when she first met him. And Chihiro recognizes this change within him. She holds no grudge against him and she is very tolerant and accepting. And I don't know, but something deep is here. Chihiro's character is the goal for me down the line, years and decades from now, because I can hold a grudge and I can be very unforgiving, but she makes me want to be better, more loving, more open, accepting, pure-hearted, yet simultaneously strongly hold my boundaries and beliefs, and not to take anything personally. She's very balanced in this way. Why does this 6-year-old make me want to be a better woman, a better person, a better human being? The end of Chihiro's very long, fantastical journey is when she outwits Yubaba. Haku makes a deal with Yubaba, who promises to tear up Chihiro's contract and let Chihiro go after she passes a final test. The final test Yubaba gives Chihiro is for her to figure out which pig out of all these pigs is her mom and dad. This is yet again another trick, since none of the pigs out of all these pigs are her mom and dad. Chihiro realizes this, which is how she is able to pass Yubaba's final tests and leave with her parents who have already turned into human. But before Chihiro leaves, Haku promises that they will meet again. In my head, I'm like, how are they going to meet? He's a spirit, isn't he? He's the spirit of the Kohaku River. Are they going to meet when she dies? In her dreams? Is he speaking metaphorically, symbolically, and not literally? What's going on? If I was Chihiro, I would have been like, I love you, and I'm going to continue loving you from a distance, but I have to go. I have to be with my people. I have to be among the humans, the living. I don't want to be a spirit. I know Haku is a good guy, but in my mind, he's still a red flag. And Haku reminds me of a spirit guide, and perhaps he's Chihiro's spirit guide since he saved her from drowning in his river. But yeah, I was like, what is going on? What does he mean by this? Because I don't want to see you again. The ending of this movie is a bit open-ended, and it is unclear if Chihiro remembers all that happened to her, since her parents don't seem to remember anything at all.
Well done.
What do I mean when I say that Spirited Away is a sweet tale of trickery? I went back and forth between using the word sweet and bittersweet because there were so many moments that this movie left a bitter taste in my mouth, so to speak, but I stuck to the word sweet because of our beloved main character, Chihiro. Her sweetness, her kindness, her open-heartedness approach to solving her problems was truly eye-opening for me. She never held a grudge, she was forgiving, but at the same time, she was no pushover, and she easily held up her boundaries. She's aspirational in that regard. Let's move on to the trickery. The concept of greed kept popping up all throughout this movie, but I truly believe greed or being greedy or having greedy characteristics was a trick. Many of the characters that we meet are tricked in this movie, and then there are some characters that are doing the tricking. They're doing the trickery. You know, you are either being tricked or tricking. Trick or treat Halloween. There is a whole lot of trickster energy, Joker energy, or whatever you want to call it in Spirited Away. Depending on your perspective and how you feel about being tricked, tricksters aren't necessarily good or evil. They're neutral. And in this movie especially, this energy was shown to be a test of sorts. Something to overcome, learn lessons, get lost, go on a journey, and grow from. But in order to outwit a trickster, one must become a better trickster. It takes a lot of wit, skill, experience, and knowledge, thinking outside of the box, having allies, and so forth. I'm going to end this video by answering the following question. How good does this movie make me feel and why? When the credits for this movie started rolling, I was honestly not ready for this movie to end. Spirited Away was such a beautiful and moving story. This is the kind of movie where I have to sit down and watch it. It creates such a deep, descriptive, and immersive world where each time I rewatch this movie, I find something new, as if I'm seeing it for the first time. It has many layers, and there is no way I can play this movie as background noise. It's too good for that. I feel inspired, good, light, fluffy, whimsical, full of wonder and life. In such a short time, I grew attached to these characters and developed a fondness that makes it hard to say goodbye. My only comfort is that I can always rewatch this movie again and again until I am satisfied. Still, there are questions left unanswered. This movie has such an ambiguous ending, left to interpretation. I have a love-hate relationship with these kind of endings, like the movie Insatiable, because what was that ending? Of course, I like that it makes me think, but it also feels detached. There is no definite closure. It is up to me to decide what I want to take away from this movie. I wrote down in my notes that Spirited Away is a 9 out of 10, but in my heart, my mind, body, and soul, I know this movie is a 10 out of 10. My only complaint is that I want more. And if I can't have more, then at least an epilogue. I'm not asking for much. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. Bye-bye for now.